I picked up a glass of champagne after my sister's fiance's father, who I presume is the CIO, raised his own. To what should we raise a glass? Maybe because Henry lacked discernment. My sister Caitlin, her fiancé Henry, and I were all in shock at what Theo had said. Theo grinned contentedly as he cautiously examined our features. He then abruptly hurled his champagne glass's contents at me. Huh. I was spilling champagne from my new outfit over my head. What a jerk. Before you depart, make sure you tidy up properly. Henry and Caitlin were stunned, but Henry's mother Ellie's laughter was the only sound in the room. Caitlin told me, "I'm sorry for making you feel bad, Noah," while we were riding back in the taxi. Even in these situations, her concern touches me. What a lovely sister she is. Caitlin, don't be concerned about me. Let's consider what brings you the most joy. As a brother, I want to do everything in my power. I made a heartfelt pledge. I started making plans for the following day while I was staring out the window. I called the bank at precisely 9 in the morning the following day while I was at work. I suggested what I had been thinking about since the previous day and sought to talk with the person in charge. I'm thinking of closing my account. Noah is my name. I am a 35-year-old single man. I lived side by side with my sister Caitlin, who is 6 years younger than me, after losing my parents at a young age. At last, she was being married. Caitlin was preparing dinner that day when I got home from work. I told Caitlin that I was surprised because there hadn't been any discussion about it, and she laughed heartily. Caitlin used to make dinner when I got home from work when she was still a student. We now lived apart, though, as she had moved out. I hadn't eaten my sister's food in a long time, but we still communicated from time to time. Caitlin mentioned it nonchalantly, as if discussing the weather for the following day, while I was gushing about the cuisine. I'm thinking about getting married. My soup almost choked me. What? Are you married? You? She laughed at my messy appearance and asked, "Who else would it be?" He's a college classmate. We have been considering getting married. You mean he proposed? Yes, well, it was evident from Caitlin's bashful response that this was a fact rather than a joke or a fabrication. Congratulations. I was half-dazed when I said it, and Caitlin laughed when she saw my expression. You appear so taken aback. Are you? Of course I am. Caitlin and I discussed her boyfriend and the future late into the night after supper. The discussion appeared to go on forever. Unusually, Caitlin spent the night at my place that day. After talking for a while, Caitlin said she was sleepy and went to the bedroom, leaving me alone and unable to sleep. My mind inadvertently wandered back to the day Caitlin was born. It was a hot summer day when Caitlin arrived. I was in the first grade of elementary school, that summer feeling a bit restless with summer vacation around the corner. The atmosphere at home that day was more unsettled than usual. In the morning, my mom sent me off as usual, but after lunch, my dad came to pick me up from school, saying, "She's born." We rushed to the hospital, and there was Caitlin, behind the glass among the row of babies with red, wrinkled faces. I couldn't tell which one was my sister until my dad pointed her out. But once he did, she seemed to have the cutest face of them all. I can still remember the feeling when her tiny, moist hand firmly gripped my finger. It was a sense of happiness, like my heart was wrapped in a warm blanket. The smell of milk on her breath, her unbelievably tiny nails, even her surprisingly strong kicks, I found them all adorable. After my sister was born, our house became noisier, but it was a warm and fun daily life. This fascinating and cute creature called a baby grew up surprisingly fast. She started walking, talking, and breaking my stuff. My sweet little sister eventually began to sass me. Suddenly, our happy family days came to an end. It was a winter day when I was in 7th grade, and Caitlin had just started elementary school. Our parents had an accident that day. Cold rain started in the evening, leaving us at home working on school assignments. Mom went to pick up Dad, who had forgotten his umbrella at the train station. The train station was about a 5-minute walk from our home. We'd heard the sound of ambulance sirens, but didn't realize they were for our parents until later. Apparently, it was a car accident caused by a slippery road. We were told it all happened so fast that there was no time to feel pain. But the reality of losing both parents at once didn't quite hit us. It felt like being thrown into complete darkness, a terrifying uncertainty. From that day on, we had to live as just the two of us. As minors, we couldn't live by ourselves and ended up being taken in by relatives. I spent the next 3 years there until I graduated middle school. After entering high school, Caitlin and I started living just the two of us. I worked part-time at a small local company while attending high school and became a full-time employee upon graduation. The company, a battery manufacturer, was small, with about 10 employees. Mike, the owner, had started it after turning 50. I will never forget the favor of being employed. Not only did Mike hire me when I was still a kid, but he also raised me to be a professional. I believe that I was able to send my younger sister to university while also using my parents' insurance money and scholarship programs, because I had an understanding boss like Mike. After we started living together, Caitlin would cook dinner when I returned from work. She had her school studies, so I tried to do housework as much as possible, but I admittedly relied on her cooking skills. Balancing studies and household chores must have been hard, but her presence was always a great help to me. Whether it was when I was tired or when work didn't go well, without Caitlin, I couldn't have persevered like this. I would probably have been stuck in a gloomy state after our parents died. Of course, I still wish our parents could see how we are now, but we've managed to move forward because of Caitlin's presence. Now she is getting married. The sister I raised like a parent is about to find happiness with the person she chose. As a brother, there is no greater joy. Recently, Caitlin mentioned that she wanted me to formally meet her fiancé's parents and join them for dinner. Thinking my usual cheap suit wouldn't cut it, I bought a nice one I normally wouldn't afford and prepared for the day. When I arrived at the restaurant, Caitlin and her fiancé welcomed me. The young man, who introduced himself as Henry, was extremely nervous, stumbling over his own name several times. At first, I was nervous too, but it was amusing seeing how tense he was, and I couldn't help laughing when he stuttered for the 5th time. "Come on, don't laugh at him, Noah." "Henry's been nervous all morning," Caitlin scolded. "Sorry, I just couldn't help it." Seeing me laughing so hard, Henry said in an almost fading voice, "I'm sorry, but I'm glad to see Caitlin's partner is such a nice guy." I was secretly worried it might be someone really intimidating. Hearing my candid words, Henry finally relaxed. That's reassuring to hear. I feel relieved now. Next to him, Caitlin smiled, lowering her eyebrows. "I told you there was no need to be so nervous, but you've been working hard since high school, and you even managed to send Caitlin to college. She said she respects you a lot, you know." "Hey, don't talk about that here." Caitlin, blushing, stopped Henry. I couldn't hide my surprise that she had spoken so highly of me. "Caitlin, come on, stop it. Today is just for introductions, so don't look at me with those emotional eyes." Seeing Caitlin clearly embarrassed, Henry smiled kindly. I could tell these two would make it. Their mutual care was palpable to me. "By the way, have you heard from your dad and mom?" Caitlin shifted the topic, her face still red. "Not yet. I wonder what's up. Can't get in touch with them." I asked him, and he apologized with an embarrassed look. "Yes, I'm really sorry for keeping you waiting. I've been trying to call them, but I just can't get through." "No, it's fine by me. I don't have any other plans, and I can wait. But it does get worrying when there's no contact. I really apologize for the inconvenience, especially since you arrived early. Let me try calling them again." Just as Henry was about to step outside, it started to rain. Just great. Seriously, we should have driven here, Henry said. The restaurant didn't have parking. Suddenly, the door to the private room at the restaurant opened, and two people who seemed to be Henry's parents entered. Henry had told me their names were Theo and Ellie. Dad, Mom, Henry greeted them. What's with this place? It was so hard to find, and we got wet. Why did you choose here? Was it her idea? Ellie asked, glancing at Caitlin. Oh, we chose it together. Henry stumbled over his words as he was immediately criticized for the restaurant choice. Sorry for the inconvenience with the location, but it's actually well known for its delicious food, Caitlin tried to interject in support. But Ellie merely glanced at her and didn't respond, as if Caitlin wasn't there at all. She turned to Henry and spoke. Anyway, no more of this place. If there's a next time, make sure it's somewhere easier to get to. Did next time mean the next dinner? Normally, I would take it that way, but the coldness in her voice made me wonder if it was a dig at another matter altogether. Caitlin continued speaking to Ellie and Theo. Thank you for coming today, despite your busy schedules. My name is Caitlin. Ellie sighed loudly enough for Caitlin to hear and continue without responding. Turning back to Henry, she asked, Henry, who's this? Her gaze then shifted to me, standing a bit behind. This is Caitlin's older brother. I've told you, right? Caitlin's family lost their parents early, and her brother has been like a parent to her, Henry explained, seeming bewildered by Ellie's behavior. Hearing Henry's explanation, Ellie murmured disinterestedly, and then looked at me. So, you're the brother. Where do you work now? You went straight into work after high school, right? Couldn't find a better job, I suppose. Well, yes. I got a job at a manufacturer near our home, I said, faced with her blatant malice. I was at a loss for words. Oh, we see that a lot in our line of work. Small companies that can't produce much but still come begging for loans. They should just shut down already. Both of us work at the bank, so we don't want our sons struggling with money. It must be tough being poor, right? You work at a bank? I asked. Yes. There's a branch near this restaurant, actually. Our area of responsibility is a bit further south, though. But if you need a loan, I suggest going to a different bank. We'd rather not deal with losses. I remembered there was a major bank branch near the restaurant's closest station. Our company had dealings with them, but to avoid further issues, I decided to stay silent. Mom, please don't be rude to Noah and Caitlin. And why were both of you so late anyway? Henry rightly pointed out. After all, both of them were late without even a word of apology. That's what I'm saying, right? We got lost because the place was hard to find. Theo finally spoke up, having been silent until now. But still, a call would have been nice. I tried calling several times, Henry said. We came all this way for you, and that's how you speak to us. Theo suddenly raised his voice. At his words, Henry, looking shocked, fell silent. Let's just drop it. I'm hungry. Can we start the meal? I felt like asking whose fault it was that the meal was delayed but remained quiet. More concerning was Caitlin, ignored by Ellie, who looked down with a pale face. When Theo called the waiter, the food was brought out as if they had been waiting for the signal. Without proper introductions, the appetizers and entrees were served. Caitlin sat next to me, with Theo across from us, followed by Ellie and Henry. Theo raised his champagne glass, so I also took mine. What should we toast to? Perhaps to Henry's lack of discernment. At Theo's words, Caitlin, Henry, and I were astonished. Theo looked at our faces slowly and smiled with satisfaction. Then he deliberately poured his champagne over me. Champagne poured over my head, dripping from my newly bought suit. Clean up nicely before you leave, poor man, Ellie laughed, while Caitlin and Henry were speechless. Wiping the dripping champagne, I silently grabbed my jacket and walked to the private room's door. "Excuse us." With that, I pulled Caitlin's hand and left the restaurant. Caitlin didn't speak. She just kept looking down. As we exited, Henry ran after us. "I'm so sorry," Henry apologized earnestly. "Henry, I never fought. I'm truly sorry." Henry's shoulders shook slightly as he continued to apologize. I saw tears fall to the ground. "Caitlin, I'm really sorry." "Henry, for today, I'll take Caitlin home. You should go back to your place and think about what you'll do next with Caitlin." Henry seemed resolved by my words. My mind is already made up. Tears ran down his cheeks as he looked at me with determined eyes. Understanding him, I simply said, "I see," and walked away. Henry watched us until we got into the cab. Caitlin was the most hurt today, but Henry, being their son, must have been deeply affected too. I was more upset about the young couple being hurt than what was done to me. I can't let this go. I decided to make a call to confirm something with Mike. He promptly agreed, leaving only the paperwork for the next day. But that wouldn't heal Caitlin's emotional wounds. Sitting silently next to me, looking out the window, I wondered what to say to Caitlin. Before I could find the words, Caitlin spoke. "I still want to marry Henry." Hearing her, I nodded. "Henry's a good guy, huh? Has he always been like this?" The time before Henry's parents arrived was enjoyable for me. I saw sides of Caitlin's expressions that I don't usually get to see, and Henry's loving gaze as he looked at her. I sincerely wished for their happiness. Yeah, he's a bit timid, but sincere and kind. Henry wasn't too keen on introducing me to his parents initially. After meeting them today, I kind of understood why. They are so different from him. What did Henry say about his parents? He said that since he was a child, they've always interfered in his social life, criticizing things like lack of money or family background. I see. I had my suspicions, but it's still surprising that Henry, raised by such parents, turned out to be such a kind and good person. Henry thinks their way of thinking is wrong. He said he wants to value people's character over their family background and doesn't want to judge anyone based on their financial status. That's evident when you look at Henry. He must have gone through a lot of internal struggles. Realizing the wrongful actions of the people who raised him must have been difficult. Even if he understood them, children are easily influenced by their parents, for better or worse. Yet, Henry managed to think for himself and grew into a person who cares for others. I think that's truly remarkable. Yeah, it was probably hard for him to talk about parent troubles with me since we don't have parents. But everyone's experiences are different. Having parents can bring its own set of troubles too. Definitely. I never experienced such overbearing behavior from my parents, but growing up with that kind of treatment must have been tough. Caitlin, make sure you keep being kind to Henry. Yeah, I will. I wonder if Henry is okay. Despite Caitlin herself having a terrible experience, she seemed more worried about Henry. And I felt Henry was probably more concerned about Caitlin at the moment too. I'm also sorry for making you feel bad. No. She was even worried about me. My sister is truly kind. It's all right. Let's focus on finding the best way for you to be happy, Caitlin. As a brother, I want to do everything I can for her. I firmly vowed in my heart. Looking out the window, I began to plan for the next day. The next morning, I made a call to the bank at exactly 9:00 a.m. After being transferred to the person in charge, I proposed what I had been considering since the previous day. I'm thinking about closing my account. I joined a small battery manufacturer in the corner of the battery industry about 20 years ago, the year I started high school. Initially, I was only a part-timer, working a few hours after school, mostly handling paperwork and other menial tasks. In exchange, Mike had me read a ton of books on electrochemistry and lithium-ion batteries. Despite wanting to work more, I was told to prioritize my studies. Furthermore, I was promised not to worry about money and to discuss any financial issues openly. As a child, Mike probably saw me with parental affection. At that time, our company was small, producing standard lithium-ion batteries. But Mike was already moving toward producing high-performance batteries for hybrid electric vehicles. By the time I graduated from high school and joined the company full-time, we were just beginning to seriously launch these batteries. Lithium-ion batteries, unlike disposable alkaline batteries, can be recharged and used multiple times. Their demand, used not just in cars, but also in smartphone batteries and various other applications, was expected to grow and enter a much larger market. Mike originally liked the field and graduated from the College of Engineering, studying electrochemistry. Moreover, he even went as far as getting his PhD, however. Coming from a family that owned a resort hotel, he reluctantly took over the family business due to his parents' opposition. Finally, after turning 50, he managed to pass the business on. Then he started enjoying his second life. Even though he's now over 70, he has never given up on his dream, saying, "Chemistry continues to evolve, so I need to study the next generation sodium-ion batteries." Having watched Mike since I was a child, I have immense respect for him and have always wanted to repay his kindness. Thanks to following his advice and studying electricity, I was able to contribute to the development of high-performance lithium-ion batteries, and the company grew significantly. At one point, during his time managing the hotel, Mike was approached by a battery manufacturer's president he knew, proposing a management merger. Business integration is the process of unifying the decision-making body while keeping each company intact. Unlike a merger, it has the advantage of preserving the existing legal entity, maintaining independence and autonomy. The company, much older than ours, was impressed by Mike's ever-challenging spirit and thus approached us with a proposal. Initially, business integration, unlike mergers or strategic alliances, is said to take time to build a cooperative relationship. However, since Mike already knew them, there was a significant amount of knowledge exchange, school sharing, and workshops conducted between the companies, leading to much better performance than either had anticipated. This merger significantly expanded our company's scale. When the business changes from the management merger had settled down and the company was doing well, I was suddenly called in by Mike. Although he often invited me to dinner before, he had been busy with the merger, so it had been a while since we met. Usually, we go to a cheap bar near work, but that day, with Mike's invitation, we went to a luxurious high-end restaurant. There was no menu, just a continuous flow of delicious dishes. We chatted about recent work, my sister, and other casual topics. Then, a thick steak was placed in front of me. Its inside was a beautiful pink, melting in my mouth instantly. While I was relishing what I thought was the best meat I'd ever tasted, Mike put down his wine glass and asked, "Noah, ever thought about becoming the owner?" Huh. Shocked by his words, I accidentally swallowed the bite I had just put in my mouth without really tasting it. Even now, I regret wasting such a moment. My son took over the hotel, so there's no successor for this side of the business. But why me? You've been with our company since you were a kid. You're practically like a son to me, aren't you? But, I appreciate how you've treated me like a son. But what about the longtime employees like Sarah or Liam? I hastily mentioned the names of my senior colleagues. The number of people who have been here since the founding has significantly decreased. They're getting on in years and prefer research over dealing with such hassles. Personally, I'd rather have the younger ones take charge. You're the youngest among the veterans. Even if you made it sound reasonable, being the youngest was obvious since I'd been there since my teens. Was he really considering me for this significant role just because of that? But I don't know anything about running a business, Mike. You only gave me books on batteries. That's the point. You knew nothing about batteries at first, right? And look at you now. Well, I've been here for 20 years. Thrown into a team of graduate scholars, I learned through tears. The first step in creating high-performance lithium-ion batteries was increasing their energy density, starting with improvements to cathode and anode materials, electrolytes, and cell structures. But focusing too much on that could compromise safety and lifespan. Lithium-ion batteries are prone to fires caused by short circuits between the cathode and anode due to overcharging or discharging. I had been dedicated to researching how to make them safer and more efficient. But if I become the owner, I won't be able to do this kind of work anymore, right? I was just getting into studying solid-state lithium-ion batteries. You're studying solid-state. I've been working on lithium alternatives. Mike, always a science enthusiast, seemed to yearn for the lab despite his busy schedule. I admired his never-ending pursuit of learning. Now he was offering me to be his successor. It was flattering, but also daunting. I wasn't directly involved in research and development, but since I had been in the quality control and assurance department for a long time, I had to thoroughly understand the products. I had studied hard for that purpose. At first, I doubted a high school graduate like me could work alongside doctoral researchers. But thanks to senior employees and Mike, who patiently answered my basic questions without disdain, I learned a lot. Yet the idea of suddenly taking on the role of owner was intimidating. Reading my concerns, Mike said, "You started knowing nothing, yet you've contributed to developing new products. You could learn to manage the business too. Just could isn't enough to take on being the owner. The thought of potentially ruining the company as its owner terrifies me. It'll be fine. With the parent company overseeing the group, they can provide immediate support if needed," Mike reassured me confidently. But I was still far from convinced. Entrusting such a crucial company to a greenhorn like me seemed insane. I managed to decline then, but Mike was not one to give up easily. Indeed, a man who has spent a long time achieving his dreams has a different kind of perseverance. For a while, I thought I had enough of fine dining as I was taken to various delicious places and persuaded to become the owner. That day, I believe we were at a steakhouse. Sitting in front of a tempting steak, I finally caved in and told Mike, "All right, I'll take the job." "Really?" Mike almost jumped out of his seat with excitement. "But I have one condition." "What is it? Tell me anything." I told Mike that I needed time to learn about management from scratch, and ideally wanted 2 years for a proper transition. He had planned to retire within a year, but was still in good health. After some persuasion, he agreed to my terms. That night, Mike drank more than usual, seeming elated that I would be his successor. He started telling old stories with a happy look on his face. One of them was about when I, as a middle schooler, came to him wanting a job, and how he was impressed by my maturity and decision to work for my sister's sake. He was surprised that instead of saving for my own college, I chose the riskier path of sending my sister to college. Making decisions and taking risks are both qualities an owner needs. "Why didn't you say that earlier?" Had I heard this sooner, I might have been more inclined to accept the owner role earlier. After the 2-year transition period, I officially became the owner. It felt unbelievable that a student who started as a part-time worker while in high school eventually led a large battery manufacturing company. But this was the responsibility Mike, who had been like a parent to me, entrusted to me. I am now committed to working for the benefit of our employees. I contacted Mike because I needed to change the company's main bank for personal reasons. He readily agreed, and that's why I called the bank. The bank's manager and the branch manager quickly showed up. It made sense, given the account held about $100 million. I knew the account closure wouldn't be simple and would take time. I had to get help from the finance department for the procedure. I felt sorry for increasing the finance team's workload, but this was the only method I could think of. I explained to the bank representative, who looked pale, how we ended up canceling. When I inquired about the employees named Theo and Ellie, I was told they worked at a nearby branch. Since it fell under the jurisdiction of the main branch, I had them called in. They arrived promptly. They were starkly different from their late appearance at the dinner. "You're early today," I'd remarked, unable to resist a bit of sarcasm. Observing their clueless expressions upon seeing me, they began trembling. "What is the meaning of this? Or should I say, you two have shown great disrespect to President Noah." The branch manager was furious. "We didn't do anything." "President Noah, did you say?" "Yes, I'm Caitlin's brother Noah. Last time we met, I didn't even get to introduce myself before getting drenched in champagne." The branch manager gasped. "You did what to President Noah?" "We didn't know he was the president. We thought he was just a poor high school graduate without parents." "Don't speak so rudely." As the branch manager scolded, Ellie continued, "Sorry, but that's what we heard from our son. We didn't know he was the president." Henry had probably only mentioned me as the brother who lost his parents in an accident and raised his sister by working straight out of high school. I was struck by how perceptions could change so drastically. Henry was crying, apologizing to me and Caitlin. "Are you really okay with being such parents to him?" I finally expressed what I had been wanting to say. "Don't you dare talk about our family. Henry should marry a girl from a better family." Has Henry ever said that's what he wants? Despite growing up with parents who judge people by their money and background, Henry turned out to be such a good person. He must have struggled a lot because of you. All I want is for Caitlin and Henry to be happy. Seeing Caitlin and Henry's pained expressions the day before still haunted me. I could only do so much, but I hoped it helped them live without regrets. What right do you have to act all high and mighty? What do you know about Henry anyway? You're just a president of some soon-to-fail small company, right? Yeah, and I bet that account isn't even worth much, right, branch manager? As they continued to berate me, the branch manager raised his voice. "Are you serious? President Noah is talking about closing a $200 million account." $200 million? It can't be. Both slumped to their knees, looking up at me in disbelief. They were the kind to judge people by money. It was no surprise their hearts broke at the amount. "Branch manager, given the circumstances, I'd like to proceed with the account closure. I don't need the full amount immediately, but let's start the process, please." Seeing the rude behavior of Theo and Ellie, the branch manager must have realized he couldn't persuade me otherwise. He sagged his shoulders and said, "Understood." Then he left, dragging the ashen-faced Theo and Ellie with him. Since then, they were ousted from their original department and demoted to a less influential position. Due to the significant losses, they also faced salary reductions and were kept at a distance by other employees. Or so I heard through the grapevine. Henry eventually told his parents he would no longer contact them. He refused any further assistance and announced his marriage to Caitlin. Despite Theo and Ellie's objections, Henry left without revealing his whereabouts. "Noah, hurry up." "Wait, I'm coming." Today is Caitlin and Henry's wedding. With the clear blue sea as the backdrop, the photographer is ready. The ceremony is intimate, attended only by a few friends who are aware of our situation. And me, her brother. Caitlin's pure white dress stands out beautifully against the blue sky and sea. Their happy smiles shine brightly. A bouquet of red and yellow colors flies towards the sun. As I squint at the dazzling light, the bouquet lands in my hands, even though Caitlin's friend was also close by. "Sorry," I say sheepishly. "Noah, read the room," Caitlin chides, making me scratch my head in embarrassment. I know it's pointless to think about it, but I wish our parents could have seen this. What would they say? Seeing Caitlin so beautiful and grown up, knowing only the little 60-year-old version of her, I imagine them saying, "You look beautiful." We're so happy. I picture them laughing with us. Noel. Overwhelmed by the beauty of the sky, sea, and Caitlin, her voice pulls me back. "Thank you." Somehow, I heard our parents' voices in hers. I looked down, unable to hold back my tears. I tried not to cry, but they streamed down uncontrollably. Feeling a hand on my back, I heard a voice. "Thank you so much." Seeing me cry, Henry couldn't hold back, and we ended up crying together. Watching us, Caitlin wasn't crying. She was laughing heartily. Her laughter made me so happy that I cried anew. Their joyful laughter echoed on the white sandy beach for a long time.